I have no idea where he is. Come on. No, you die. Right now. Not like this, dude. Come on. Alright. Played 18 hours, 25 minutes. I never, I never, ever want to do minion Sirus on low gear ever again, dude. That was so painful, bro. We're level 89. We have a 5-link trash gear. Here's the gear. We did get lucky with jewels. We got a minion cluster jewel as well as a fortress covenant, but besides that, we didn't get lucky with pretty much any of the rest of our gear. We didn't end up getting a trigger wand. We didn't end up getting the life gain on hit shield or life gain on block shield, but everything else, decent. 1825, I think that's a pretty good like first ever time for trying to go from fresh to Sirus like as fast as I can on a build that I've never played. Show Sirus character length? It probably goes beyond. Like I probably can't go back far enough. So, boys, it's that time of year, the time where we have to do some big old boy testing on all the different league starters that we potentially might be doing for the next league. 3.17 is Siege of the Atlas, if you haven't seen the teaser. There's not very much there. There's a couple little like pictures and things going on, you know, give us just a little tiny itty bitty tidbit of information. As is classic of GGG, hopefully we'll get some back spoilers as well, but that's not what we're here for. We are here to talk about Absolution and the Absolution Necromancer. Now, over on my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/bigducks, which you should go follow, by the way, if you want to see the rest of these tests, we're going to be doing quite a bit of them. SSF fresh start all the way till Sirus on each and every one of these. We did a Absolution Necromancer test. Now, I took a look at a couple POBs because I haven't really been in the PoE game recently. I took mostly a break this league, so I grabbed a POB by Ghazzy, I changed around some points on the tree, changed around a few pieces of gear, and got it a little bit more suited for SSF, and we went to work. And the goal here is simply kill Sirus. If you don't know, in the latest update to the Atlas that they've done, they've made it so that Sirus doesn't appear until you get all of the Watchstones in. So you have to get all, 16 of the Watchstones, and then Sirus will spawn. But here's how everything went. When it comes to the campaign, this build did amazingly. I was genuinely surprised at how well everything went, because I had heard some horror stories about, you know, Absolution just being absolute complete trash. And even after the buffs, I had heard some people saying, oh yeah, you can't level with this, it only really works at endgame. None of that is true. It absolutely annihilates the campaign. The only downside during the campaign is that sometimes you get into these situations where you're like trying to hit a boss and it's not spawning the boys and, you know, you're kind of just sitting there doing nothing. Besides that, absolute dream. It doesn't need any kind of crazy gear to level. It doesn't need a tabula. It doesn't need 6 links. Doesn't need special gems, links, anything like that. We got all the way through the campaign on a 4-link. I was killing bosses in maybe a few seconds most of the time. Now, this is a summoner build, so eventually later on in the campaign, you are going to need to get specters. You are going to need to deal with zombies and a golem and all that extra stuff. So if you don't like that playstyle, this probably isn't the build for you. But if you're okay with summoners, you're okay with that kind of playstyle, this build did quite well. When we moved into white maps, white map progression was really good. I didn't have almost any issues whatsoever. It felt exactly the same as the campaign. Map bosses died really quickly. Clear was really good. And then we moved into yellow maps. Everything stayed the same except the first kind of like problem showed up with the build, and that's recovery. This is probably the main issue that I have with the build, and one of the only ones that I have with the build, is that simply, it's really tough to get your HP pool back up after it goes down. The options that you have are a good life flask. You can run a vitality aura if you don't want to run all of the other auras that I ran, which I'll talk about in a little bit. You can run zealotry and hope that, you know, you proc some consecrated ground under you. You can use a consecrated ground flask. Or the last one, and probably the most realistic one, is you can get a percentage of life gained on block shield. This is either, I think, a warlord or a shaper shield, I think is the influence that you need. We ended up getting the bases, but I could never actually land the shield. So we didn't have one all the way through, but it would have made things a lot easier. Besides that, damage, clear, bossing, survivability for the most part, except for that recovery, was all perfectly fine in yellows. And that continued into early reds. However, on SSF gear, when we got into like 14s, 15s, 16s, and Conquerors in 14s, 15s, and 16s, it started to massively slow down. It can still do them relatively well, but the bosses die a lot slower. Now, if you are in a trade league and you can get a hold of all of the gear that you need, a higher level Absolution, make sure that you get a trigger wand, Algor Mortis gloves, like some Abyss jewels with, like, if you've summoned a minion recently or if you've used a minion skill recently, you have extra damage, and cluster jewels and all that kind of good stuff. If you have access to all of those, none of these problems show up. The build is still like amazing all the way through the game. And if you want to invest more money into it, meaning like Doriani's and all that kind of stuff, even better. Like, it annihilates bosses completely. However, in the SSF testing, it did get a little rough. And this build with SSF gear is not fun for Sirus. It took us a while to kill him, just because it's really hard to keep the boys going, because the way that Absolution works is you have to attack a unique or a rare, and it just has like a 25% chance to spawn the minion instead of it being just like the minions are always up. So Sirus goes immune or jumps away, and it's hard to keep the guys up, and it's just kind of a pain. Everything else, mostly okay though. So pretty much everything is good. If you're in a trade league, this build can go from 0 to hero, no problem whatsoever. However, there is one thing I want to talk about. Pretty much every guide that I looked up is using Spell Echo in their links for this. I don't know if I'm crazy, if I'm just bad at the game or whatever, but Spell Echo feels absolutely terrible on this build. I don't think that you should use it until you get a ton of cast speed, because until then, when you're trying to use Spell Echo in a boss fight with dangerous mobs around you, it just feels like you're stuck in place for so long, it's really difficult to stay alive. Maybe that's different if you can get the life gain on block shield or a lot more cast speed, but early on, Spell Echo just feels absolutely trash. I was using faster casting for bosses and swapping it out for Phantasms for clear. That works significantly better for me. It didn't do as much damage, truth be told, Spell Echo is the most damage, but man does it feel really bad. Did you remember to like this video if you're enjoying all the content, or if the video was helping you out, and to make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so that you stay up to date with all the latest content? Because if you don't, you're going to be part of that large percentage of people who are still not subscribed to this YouTube channel. And you don't want to be one of them, do you? Now, the POB that is included down in the description isn't going to be one of my full POBs. It's going to be a very basic POB with the tree, the gear that I have on this character, a few little notes, as well as a couple other things. This build did well enough that I think with no nerfs to Necromancer or the ability or the archetype or anything like that, it will be a contender for a League Start video for 3.17. However, don't expect that the POB that's in this video to be a League Start POB. It also might be nerfed. I don't know, I can't tell the future, although it doesn't really feel like this build's going to be nerfed. Now, this is my character. We are not in SSF at the moment because I have transferred everything over into Standard Scourge because I'm already on the next character, which I am streaming over at Twitch, which you should go follow, by the way, like I said earlier. But as you can see, we've got some zombies, we've got some specters, and we have our Absolution spell. This is essentially like just a big lightning strike. It's kind of like Fist of the Heavens from Diablo 2, and I'll show you that in a map here in a moment. You've kind of been seeing some of the footage from before. Now, when it comes to our specters, we are using a Carnage Chieftain, a Host Chieftain, as well as I think it's an Arena Master is what it's called. The ideal specter would probably be I think it's a Primal Rex Matriarch, I think is what it's called, but I haven't been able to find one of those in SSF yet. But the idea is we want power charges from the Host Chieftain, frenzy charges from the Carnage Chieftain. The Arena Master gives us like a little onslaught type buff. I don't remember exactly what the Primal Rex Matriarch does, but I'm sure one of you can let me know down in the comments. It was just chat was telling me, because I've never played this build before, so they were basically helping me wing it all the way through. Build is relatively simple. We do scale crit later on in the game. When it comes to our links, as I said, I was using faster casting because Spell Echo just felt like massive bait. Let me show you what I mean. So the problem is that you're moving and you use Spell Echo and you are locked in place for a long time. Like, I'm trying to move as much as I can in between these casts, but that's how long that you're stuck in place. Compared to using faster casting, you're stuck in place for significantly less time. Way, way, way better feeling. Not as much damage, but way better feeling. Now, I tend to use Summon Phantasm for clear. Let me pull up just a random map. Blue map, sure, physical damage reduction, shock to ground. So, as I said before, the way that this ability works is that you hit him with the lightning bolt from the sky, and if you hit a rare or unique monster, it will spawn the Absolution Sentinel. And if you kill a white or blue monster that has the debuff, it will spawn them automatically. Now, the idea here is that once you get the Absolutions going, they kind of will just kill everything for you, and it's more of like a maintenance thing. You just need to keep them up as you move around. You'll see them, they're right here. They kind of look like Magisters or something like that. I don't really know exactly what they look like, but that's the idea. Now, as I said, I use Phantasms for clear because the Phantasms gives you a little bit bigger of a minion army. It gives you a little bit more coverage. Because the one thing that this build does kind of not feel great at later on, even though this is a tier 14 map, but it is a blue rolled tier 14 map. I just pulled a random one out of my inventory. Is that it doesn't really feel super great on clear with SSF gear. If I had like a bunch more money spent on gear and I had spent a bunch more time trying to get the character a little bit stronger, obviously the clear would be better, but as it is right here, you can kind of see. I'm gonna make a beeline for the boss so I can show you how it feels on a boss and maybe give you an example of some of the more annoying things that can happen, because if you can't keep the Sentinel spawned at all times, it feels a little bad. Now this is a block build. We are using Bone Offering as well as Mistress of Sacrifice to get that little bit of extra block going on our character. I kind of feel like Glancing Blows would be better if and only if we were able to get a hold of that block shield. Now, I'll curse the boss, get all the boys in here, and just start going to town. This is a tier 14 map. I think we're on Awakener 8. I will check after the boss is dead. But you can kind of see the damage isn't anything to write home about. It's good. And that's quite a few maps that dropped from there. But Awakener 8, this is my normal Atlas. This isn't the SSF Atlas I was doing, but tier 14, the boss died relatively quickly. And like I said, it is a crit build, so we are using Assassin's Mark and such, but that's pretty much it. We're using Wrath, we're using Determination. I am also, I didn't have my aura on. We're using Tempest Shield as well as Defiance Banner. I was missing some auras there. Who knows? But anyways, we're scaling a bunch of armor. That's the reason we're using Defiance Banner and Determination, all that kind of good stuff. But overall, build did quite well. A pretty enjoyable experience. I think that this is one of the few minion builds that I do enjoy nowadays. I've always enjoyed more active minion builds where you do things yourself, and this is definitely one of them. Not much else to say about the character. When we do get into actual like League Start Guide mode, I will make a much more in-depth video about this, but for now you can check my basic POB that is in the description. And that is going to be it for the video. This build did quite well. I'm happy to have a minion build that actually feels like something I want to play, that is viable, because, you know, SRS kind of got nerfed quite a few times inadvertently for seemingly no reason, and I wasn't able to play that. I do want to give Skeleton Mages a try, but that's a little bit hard to get working in SSF, so we'll figure out what we're going to do with that. But pretty happy with the build. I'd say overall I give it like an 8 or 9 out of 10. It just has those few little small problems that can be overcome with gear, but in an SSF like League Start Race to Sirus scenario, it's a little tough to get that done. But yeah, we got all the way up to Sirus in about 18 hours and 25 minutes is what I think the timer was at the end. I'll put it on screen here if I remember. But that was a pretty good time for the first time that I've ever like actually just tried to go from 0 to Sirus as quickly as I possibly can. But remember, boys, if you enjoy the content, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content similar to this. If you want to hang out with the rest of the boys, also consider joining us on Discord. And besides that, make sure to stay safe out there in raid class. And I'll see you guys in the next video.